privilege. I'm going to go with that.
Okay, so then you do not believe in the Second Amendment as it is written?
No, I believe it needs to be amended. I believe in a ban for guns.
Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. A quote by Benjamin Franklin. That's a very important quote to keep in mind for this video, because not only does it have to do with this conversation between Charlie Kirk and this misinformed liberal here, but even more importantly, it perfectly summarizes why we need the Second Amendment. So in today's video, as per usual with Charlie Kirk, he goes on to debate some more college kids, and one of these guys seems to be smart, but not really. That's kinda being generous, if I'm being honest. And if it hasn't been stressed enough already, Charlie Kirk goes over a lot of great reasons for why we need the Second Amendment, among a lot of other things. I'll be providing my commentary on this, and I sincerely hope the rest of you enjoy this interaction. And with that being said, let's take a look at what this college kid has to say. Oh, and spoiler alert, he happens to have a Harris Wall sticker on his chest, which is pretty disgusting, but no matter. Let's proceed to roll the tape.
So I'm going to talk about some gun control stuff. Do you mind if I give you some statistics first?
Yeah, fine.
All right, awesome. So in the United Kingdom, there was the Dunblane Massacre in March 13, 1996. It was a school shooting. 17 people were killed, 15 were injured. Following that massacre, it is probably the biggest massacre in UK history, involving schools specifically. There was a ban on all handguns. Since then, there's been no school shootings in the UK, and it averages 28 firearm homicides a year. In the United States, there are 39,707 gun deaths in 2019 alone. The average of one gun-related death every 11 minutes. In 2023, there were 346 school shooting incidents in the U.S. So far, there have been 385 mass shootings in 2024, and a mass shooting is defined as an incident in which 4 or more people are injured or killed. Why are you pro-Second Amendment?
He's leaving out a lot of other stuff,
Right,
which
so I just want to make sure
he'll
I
bring
know
up.
where you're coming from. Do you believe owning a firearm is a right or a privilege?
I believe it's a privilege. I'm going to go with that.
Okay, so then you do not believe in the Second Amendment as it is written?
No, I believe it needs to be amended. I believe in a ban for guns.
Okay, so that's where we disagree, and that's okay. We have clarity but not agreement. I believe that your right to protect yourself
Yeah,
and your
good luck
family
trying to do that.
against a tyrannical
Abolish
government
the
or a
Second
home invader
Amendment.
is an inalienable right that must be protected and that no one can take it away. Now, and that's okay, we have clarity on that. Now, let's go through why I believe that and also some clarifying statistics.
Yeah.
Everything you said is true, but one part of it is misleading. Is that, yes, there are about 30,000 gun deaths a year, or death by firearm, but 2/3 of them are death by suicide.
Yes, yeah.
Right? So it's a little misleading to say 30,000 or even every 11 minutes. And so there's some people that say, well, it's easier to commit suicide if you have a gun in the house. You and I would both agree, though, that if someone is committing suicide with a firearm, there's other underlying issues. The firearm is secondary. Okay, so that's a reason. Thank you for agreeing.
Not to mention,
Okay.
there's plenty of
So
other ways to
therefore,
do
that
it. You don't
gives about
necessarily
10,000 gun
need
deaths a year.
a
The
gun
vast
to do
majority
it.
of those are
But
gang
please
related
don't do
in
it.
about 10
Please
cities
don't do
across
it.
the country. Not excusing it, but there's other underlying factors associated with it. There are 50,000 people a year that die in auto fatalities, and it's tragic. However, no reasonable person would come up to the mic and say, let's ban driving.
True. The one thing I disagree with, though, is that the primary intention of a firearm is to kill something.
Well,
is to
not
end a life.
necessarily. That's interesting.
And keep in mind, you could use the same mentality with swords back like 1,000 years ago. You could use the same mentality with bow and arrows, crossbows. Why are we getting so uppity about guns nowadays, whereas before there were other weapons that could kill very easily too? Knives, swords, bow and arrows, crossbows, they still exist. And not to mention, like what Charlie Kirk said, there's also cars that kill people, a lot of people every single year. Why aren't we banning driving? That's the mentality I fail to understand with these people who claim that we should abolish the Second Amendment.
Firearm is a technology or a tool that is actually intention neutral, right? So a firearm could be used for sharpshooting, or it could be used for a massacre. No different than a kitchen knife can be used for cook a beautiful meal, or to, murder somebody. So it's a piece of technology, albeit it makes killing easier, but it in itself is not inherently what you might think it is. Now, let me just finish the point, though, is that we as enthusiasts for the Second Amendment acknowledge that in a free society, people are going to do bad things and dumb things, but there is a price to liberty. And this is a mature viewpoint that we lost during COVID. During COVID, as a country, we said we don't want liberty, we want safety, and everybody stay at home 15 days to slow the spread. And how many of you guys wanted the lockdowns to end after like 2 weeks, right? And so what we get at, though, with firearms is that
I
we
definitely
acknowledge
did.
that there will be. It's because we believe that, God forbid, if the government ever becomes tyrannical, we need an ability to defend ourselves against a tyrannical government.
An experienced shooter on a musket could fire 3 shots a minute. All right, on average, it took 30 seconds to fire 1 shot. Modern day AR-15s, traditionally, if it's a stock model, holds about 30 rounds in a magazine. Now, you can customize that and make it carry more, sure, but the staggering statistic is that these AR-15s can empty this 30-round magazine in 5 seconds, is the possibility. So
that's totally correct.
Okay,
the question is,
so
what
what?
was the founders' intent when they put the Second Amendment? For example,
Yes.
to play out, and I'm not trying to pick on you,
No, go
but
ahead.
for example, you say the founders only want or thought that, okay, musket, Second Amendment. Did they only think First Amendment, parchment and paper, not Twitter?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase?
If the Second Amendment was only intended to cover muskets, is the First Amendment only intended to cover letter writing, not talk on the internet?
That's a good point. But here's the thing.
Meaning these principles transcend technology.
Yeah.
And that's where we come
Exactly.
from, is
That's
that
how it
you
was
have a
always
First Amendment
intended.
right, whether you're speaking
Same with the
freely
Second
on a
Amendment,
message
same with
board,
every
or
other
if you're just
amendment.
talking like the founding fathers would. You have a Second Amendment right, whether it's a musket or whether it's an AR-15, because the principle and the truth that undergirds it, and I'll let you in a second,
Yeah, for sure.
is transcendent above the technology.
So I'm going to use your logic a little bit. When the Constitution was written, slaves existed in the United States, and that was amended and added to the Constitution when we freed the slaves. Same with women, we gave them the right to vote. So I don't understand why. I mean, it feels like it's a little bit of cherry picking going.
My guy, my Harris Wall sticker wearing guy. You do realize that slavery and the Second Amendment, you are comparing apples to not even oranges. You're comparing apples to, I don't even know what kind of fruit or even a vegetable. We all know that slavery is an objective moral evil. Having somebody do something for another person without payment and pretty much against their own will, and being tortured if they did not do it, is completely different from being able to defend yourself with a weapon, whether a sword, gun, bow and arrow, whatever. Do these liberals just not hear themselves when they talk? I don't know, the longer I think about it, the more my brain's going to melt. So, let's continue to roll the tape.
So I don't understand why. I mean, it feels like it's a little bit of cherry picking going on because the Constitution is constantly evolving and changing.
Well, but hold on, the First and Second Amendment have never changed.
Does that mean they can't?
Well, but we believe
have a ratification
Well,
process.
of course they can, but we think it shouldn't, and the fact that it hasn't is noteworthy. So, for example, we tried abolition of alcohol. The country didn't want it, and we got rid of it very quickly. So we've added amendments and gotten rid of them. Why has
Prohibition,
the First Amendment
that was a
stood the
horrible
test of
thing in
time?
history.
Because we believe, as conservatives, the Constitution was not written for the times, but stand the test of time. Why? Because it was written to analyze human nature. And this is where leftists and conservatives would disagree. We think human nature is consistent over time, whereas leftists think that you're a creature of your environment and human nature changes based on the nuances and the complexities around you.
When we have justices like Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, who is making calls based off his Catholic beliefs, how is that not a violation of separation of church and state?
So first of all, separation of church and state is not in the First Amendment. You're gleaning that out of it. So that's actually a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote in 1803 to the Danbury Baptist Convention, assuring the Baptists that the government would not come after them. So you're insinuating that that is the subtext of it. However, the Warren Court resurrected that letter and said it's separation of church and state. However, you would agree that we can never have separation of conscience or morality of state, right?
Can you elaborate?
For example, you have somebody who's an office holder. The values that undergird them are going to be reflected in their decisions, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what's happening with Clarence Thomas.
Yes.
No different than Joe Biden's Catholic values are what's representing his open border policy.
Also, not to mention, if this is the logic he's using, don't you think they would have not said something in the Pledge of Allegiance such as one nation under God? Just a quick thought I wanted to say. Sorry for the continuous interruptions. Let's finish this up.
You are wearing a Harris Wall sticker.
Yes.
One question. Can you tell me her greatest accomplishment?
Absolutely. So I think that Biden-Harris administration was in an unfortunate position when they came into office. It was, around the height of the COVID pandemic. And I wish I had exact numbers for you right now. I should have done more research on that. But the inflation rate has gone down since the height of COVID to now. And Donald Trump's, one of his biggest policies is imposing tariffs, right?
Really? Inflation rate has gone down since they've been in office? Have you seen the charts? Have you seen the gas prices? Have you seen the grocery prices, which are symptoms of an ever-increasing national debt? Have you noticed the fact that Joe Biden has stated multiple times right before he was elected in 2020, before it was installed in 2020, that he would be raising our taxes? I'm not going to beat around the bush anymore. It's obvious what this guy tries to tell Charlie Kirk, that Kamala Harris did well, her greatest accomplishment. I think he said something along the lines of, child tax cuts or something like that. Other than that, he pretty much can't name anything else, so there's that. But yeah, my point still stands. The Second Amendment is one of the most important amendments in the United States, because without it, we have no other amendments. But I think I've said pretty much all I've wanted to say for this video, and I sincerely hope the rest of you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments down below if you did, or if you have any other opinions about this. Make sure to stay tuned for more content similar to this, and always keep observing from a common sense perspective.